Right. Guys, good morning. It's Sunday morning. It's Grace Talks time. And my name is Beauty Kotela. I am here to bring you yet another episode, another Grace Talks. And I'm very, very excited about this Grace Talks this morning. And I know I'm not the only one who shares that excitement. But before I go too far, let me say good morning. Let me greet you. But may I ask you to also do the same? If you can hear me? Greet, tell me where it is that you are joining us from, so that I don't go on and on talking to myself here, only to learn that nobody can hear me. All right. Good morning, guys. I hear people are here and they are waiting with expectation. All right. Good morning, Sis Nomtu. Good morning. Morning. Somebody in the group says waiting with expectation. People are here. My queen is here from Gauteng. Yeah, my queen says la. All right. Nompundo joining us from Pretoria. Good morning. Mo joining us from Gabs. Good morning. Okay, guys. I take it I am audible. Sia is here. Good morning. Mama joining us from Etua. Good morning, people joining us from Butterworth. Good morning, welcome. All right, so that's basically what we do is you come in and you greet us, all right? And you tell us where it is that you are joining us from. So Cape Town is in the house, and I want to go quickly today to our guest. So I'm taking the greetings as they come. Good morning, guys. So that's the first thing that we do. And then the second thing that we do is guys, I know I don't need to tell you this because you know it, all right? Our guest for this morning is not someone that's going to speak to you and you're going to take it and you're going to keep it to yourself, because it normally needs to share with somebody so that you can share the heat with another. So if you are here and you're looking around and you do not see, thank you, my queen, thank you so much, and you don't see your prayer partner or you don't see your friend, or whether you see them or not, but just to make sure that they don't miss this, please tag your friend, all right? My friend is joining us here from Kwanongamba. Hey, my friend, maybe one of these days I must do this Grace Talks from Ekai. All right, good morning, Monty. Slee joining us from the Kingdom of Eswatini. We are starting to, the community is coming in now. The community is coming in. Gabecha in the house. Right, good morning. Somebody joining us from Gab. Somebody wake up, Sme, so that we can also have the United Kingdom here in the house. And right, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My queen is calling, and that's exactly what we do. Queenstown is in the house. It's not always that I'm able to say Queenstown, eh? Morning, Mama. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, you greeted. You have tagged somebody. And now the next thing is, if you don't mind sharing this on your particular platform, wherever it is that you are joining us from. Lesotho is also in the house. Good morning, Litebuko. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, and if you are on people like this, Lebu that is joining us on YouTube, if you are there, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, for those of you who don't know, by the way, many people would know that I am talking too much now. That's not what I'm saying you would know. Many of you would know I wrote this book, published it in 2021. It's still in circulation. But what we've done now, we are putting it on YouTube as an audio. So daily we're putting out chapters. So we've got a few chapters in. From next week, we're going to do that. So everyone, again, go and check our YouTube channel called Building Great Lives. All right, somebody joining us from Paarl. Yeah, we have beautiful places coming in this morning. And from, this is Britstown in the Northern Cape. All right, good morning, Tevisa Peterson. Wow, okay. So guys, that's basically that. I'm going to now let our guests come in this morning because I don't want to spend most of the time talking. But for those of you who don't know, there's also a Theatre of Grace conference coming in October. All right, I will give you more information sometime in the middle of this conversation. Somebody from Umtata is joining us this morning. I'm just so happy to see all these towns that we don't normally see. All right, Angie, thank you, my friend. Thank you for joining us from Egoli. Okay, let our guest come in this morning. It is somebody that is a friend of the Theatre of Grace, very, very familiar with us. There we have him. And so I'm not the one that's going to be talking this morning. Pastor Blose is the one that's going to be doing most of the talking. Fundisi, good morning.
Morning, Miss Kotel. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I see you are
Thank you,
also
Mom
good.
Chow. I'm fine, man. I'm fine. It's a crispy
Okay.
morning in Kabeja, so I'm nice
So
and
yeah.
fresh. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And we also take this time to wish the
Mm,
princess a happy birthday. It was yesterday, but we'll do it
yes.
today here at the Theatre of Grace. We want to thank
Yes.
her
Thank you.
for giving us this opportunity with you.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. For like I said, I'm going to hand over to you shortly.
Mm,
Just to introduce the topic for today. And the topic is about forgiveness. Now, we can't exhaust the topic of forgiveness. The reason we can't exhaust it because we constantly, often, daily dealing with offenses. So
mm,
if we're going to talk about forgiveness 5 years ago and say, well, people now know how to forgive, all right?
yeah.
But on a daily basis, people are dealing with offenses. We've got the UAE in the house. This
Mm,
is called Theatre of Grace International for this,
mm,
by the way. So we have here South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Lesotho, Swaziland, the UAE, the States, the United Kingdom, Australia sometimes. So it's beautiful
mm,
to be part of this house. Okay, so the reason we every now and again must stop and talk about forgiveness is because daily people deal with offenses, and dare I say, the offenses are getting grosser, they are getting bigger, and they are getting more and more challenging. And
mm,
but this happens in the context of people here in this community who are in the pursuit of their best lives. This
mm,
when all is said and done, everybody is looking to live a good life, everybody's looking to live their best life, everybody is trying to get to heaven. So with or without the pain that often happens, we actually need to find a way of dealing with forgiveness. But the context of today is not forgiveness, just purely dealing with the topic of forgiveness broadly, but to deal with it as I use the word self-love, and
mm,
but to deal with in the context of extending grace to ourselves. Okay,
mm,
we are those who have accepted and are living powered by the grace of God, and we do our best to dispense that grace. But to look
mm,
at it in terms of saying, you know what, when I actually choose to forgive, easy or not, but when I choose to forgive, it's also a way of extending that same grace that I have extended to others, extending it to myself. So I'm so thankful that then you said yes to coming and speaking to us on that particular topic. So I'm gonna
mm.
let you speak, all right? And ladies, by now we know, right? If Mfundisi says something that resonates with you, that speaks to you, that you want to take note of, you write it down, of course, in your notepad. You take note of it, but you also just put it down in the chat so that he can know that the guys that I'm talking to are also here listening. And if you have a question, sometimes we wait until the end to ask the questions, and by then we also have run out of time. If you have a question, please very quickly put it on the chats, all right, so that we can attend to it. All right, Fundisi, let me then hand over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mom Chow. I don't know if I'm gonna need 30 minutes for this. I
Let's
mean,
see.
it's a deep and broad topic,
Um,
as you said earlier on. So I've been speaking about forgiveness for I think over 12 years now. It's one of the
mm,
earliest topics that I adopted in my preaching, just because of how central I felt it was to a Christian walk,
yeah.
and just to living a wholesome and fulfilling life. You need to be someone who forgives. And at the time, in the beginning stages, as we do, talking about forgiveness was more about something you extend to others. Obviously,
Mm,
we never think about it as something that we need to extend to ourselves, right? And so I spoke about it in terms of the grace that you need to extend to others. And part of my presentations at the time, I mean, it's evolved over time. It's evolved
mm,
over time. So you'd have a presentation on forgiveness, and then afterwards you have questions, as we will now. And you'll have questions. Even then, when I was talking about forgiveness as something you extend to other people, the questions always seemed to echo a sentiment of how unjust forgiveness is, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
people would always,
Fair.
so share and echo a sentiment, yes, so a sentiment of how unfair forgiveness
Mm,
was and how unjust it was, and how undeserving those people to whom we extended this grace to and this forgiveness to were. Of course, the normal pastoral thing was to then say, to then, resort to accusing them of having forgotten the grace and the forgiveness they'd received from God, which
Yeah.
is why they were failing to extend it to other people. True or not, right? They say you can only fail to forgive lest you forget how much you've been forgiven, right? And that was the normal or the natural sort of reaction to those sentiments that people were sharing about
Yeah.
how it was unjust and unfair for people for them to be expected to forgive other people, right? So that was the first thing that I wanted to note. I want to note, which has led me to this point now, to this part, or to this aspect of forgiveness. It was that it started as that, then it was the people's questions afterwards, and also my reaction to those questions. And then the second one, in talking about forgiveness, right, as something that finds meaning and is rooted in grace and the idea of grace. Because think about it, when you forgive someone, and as we'll talk about it today, when you forgive yourself, right? And when you forgive someone, right, you're giving something to someone which they could never earn, right? No amount of apology can ever qualify them for it, for forgiveness, right? No amount of eloquence, no amount of gifts qualifies them for forgiveness, right? Forgiveness is always a gift that is given to someone who not only cannot earn it, but is given to someone who doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Right. That's why it's called forgiveness. And Pastor Nech Flani some years ago gave us a nice definition of this. And he said, before, given. Forgiven. It's given before it is even requested, right? As such, it's like it's a gift that is prepared before it is needed. It is a gift that is prepared before it is even required. And of course, there's a lot of biblical justifications for that, right? I mean, 490 times a day you have to forgive, i.e., someone can never or wrong you 490 times in a day, right? Before you forgive them. So it's a way of being, it's a way of life, it's who you are. Forgiveness becomes who you are. It's a suit you wear so that offenses bounce off you in a way, right? And then I would land with, if you forgive, right, you also set yourself free, right? There's this adage of, because a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, right?
Yeah.
And so you drink the poison, you expect them to die. And sometimes we talk about a grudge or a lack of forgiveness as caging someone in a grudge. I mean, caging someone, right? It's like caging someone or putting someone in a cage, only to discover that you are that bird, you are that caged person or that caged individual, right? So that's what a grudge does. You think you're holding it against someone, but it's actually a self-imprisonment. It's self-isolation, right? And I can make an illustration here, and this is where I'm gonna pick it up now. Maybe I will need that 30 minutes after all.
I know you will.
So this is where I pick it up now, right? I'll make this illustration. That I've got two, but I don't know which one to choose. Anyways, so children throw a party for their mother who's turning 80. They have a big party at a fancy hotel, as we do. And they've invited me to come and speak at this hotel, and I'm going to open up with a word of prayer. We've all brought gifts to this function. It's a milestone. These kids have this party, and in the middle of the party, right? I mean, there's a stage. She's got white chairs and sit there like the queen that she is. Fancy setup. And we are all there for her. We all love her. We all adore her, including her children, right? All 300 guests or 200 guests are there for her, right? And they're there because they mean something to her. So then so the party goes on, and they have a surprise for her. The surprise was they had gone back to her past life and collected all her all the women they knew as her friends, right? And it invited them. They tracked them down, and invited them to this party, transported them, accommodated them as a gift to their mother. Of course, there are other gifts that she received, but this was, the prize gifts. So as the friends walk in, there were four of them. As soon as they walk in, the the lady's face changes. Yeah, the guest of honor, her face changes, right? And of course, I'm looking at her because I was right at the front. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, oh, something is wrong, right? And these ladies, the four ladies, right, walk in and, there's a spotlight on them because they're the surprise package and they're smiling and they're dressed to the nines. They're the happiest, as we say here in Quebec. Right? And they were looking so they were lovely. But the only person who had changed was this woman, Miss Party, right? Anyways, the story goes that afterwards, that she had a fallout with all of them at some point. Right? She's had a fallout with all of them, and she was justified in some of that and those things because they had wronged her. She felt wronged by them, right? But at that moment, and then this is my decades later, right? They've invited these friends. Years later, right? She's still holding and harboring that grudge, right? But it shows itself up at the most awkward moment at her party, right? Where she is the star of the show, where she is the apple of everyone's eyes, right? Where she is the guest of honor. The grudge took all of that away from her, right? It couldn't allow her to enjoy the gifts. It couldn't allow her to enjoy the love. It couldn't allow her to enjoy the spectacle that was her own birthday party, right? Because the people she had a grudge against, right, had walked into that room. And that in that moment, it hit me that, man, that's what grudges do, right? They never reverse what people have done. They never undo what people have done to you. But the best thing they do is that they stop you from being a prisoner to those very same people that have hurt you, right? That's what forgiveness does, right? It helps you to no longer become a prisoner to the people that have hurt you. And I think that's what for the need for forgiveness is, right? Where you forgive others, right? Is to set yourself free. But we often struggle, right, as well, again, with this idea of when we are wronged, right? And this is where the ego comes in. And by the way, this is my main finding or thesis, is that we fail to forgive because of egos, self. Regardless of who you have to forgive, self is the problem. Like the ego is the problem. Egocentrism becomes the problem. And here's one example. So we can forgive people, but what we often find is that even after I've forgiven someone of their wrong, I've left something out. So there's also there's an egocentric element to forgiving, right? Where we say, I'll forgive you because I can never allow you to control me. I will forgive you because God expected of me. I will not allow you to stand in my Christian walk. So there's an element of self and egocentrism to our forgiveness, where the forgiveness also just becomes in its own or on its own. The forgiveness becomes a way of inflicting punishment on the other party. And I call this the tyranny of forgiveness, right? The tyranny of forgiveness. Others will say the tyranny of forgiveness, the tyranny of forgiveness, where other people become victims of your forgiveness, right? Whether wittingly or unwittingly. But so forgiveness becomes this egocentric way, and a self-centered way. Yes, let me not use self. Let me use self-centered. A self-centered thing that we do, a self-centered project that we carry out. So I'll forgive you because you thought you could have me. You thought you could drown me, but you didn't know I could swim. You threw me to the wolves, but I came back leading the pack. It becomes a way of sort of self-aggrandizing, which at that moment when you've been hurt, because that's what's been injured in some parts. That's what's been injured when someone wrongs you. It's your ego, and so you need something that's going to pepper you up and pamper your ego, right? So you do this and you extend that forgiveness or whatever, whether vindictively or authentically or genuinely, but you extend that forgiveness to other people. But you have not dealt with the bruised ego, right? The ego is still bruised. So you need something that's going to sort of make you feel good. People resort to other coping mechanisms, but there's this ego that is not been dealt with, right? That makes you feel like and this is where it starts showing its head, right? When something bad happens to you, when someone betrays you, and the betrayal occurs, right? It is, why did they do this to me? Is it because I'm stupid? Is it because angnabantu? Is it because angnabani? Is it because I have no one to protect me? No one who will have my back? Is it because they thought I was insignificant or unimportant so that for them to take advantage of me, right? Is why would they do this to me, right? Well, in other words, we internalize and personalize people's actions and the way people offend us. What that ends up doing, right, is that when it's time to forgive, you forgive them, but you are left with this burden, right? You're left with this burden of, hey, um, I've I've forgiven them, so am I stupid? Am I weak for forgiving them, right? Am I dumb for having forgiven them? And you find yourself appropriating the guilt, right, that was meant for the perpetrator, and you appropriate it and it becomes your guilt. So now you're guilty not only of being so stupid, of not only being weak that they took advantage of you, but look at you, you're so weak, you're even allowing yourself to forgive them and you're letting them scot-free, right? So there's this anger that you feel with yourself. How could you do this? How can it happen? How can you allow this to happen? So you allowed it to happen. You allowed them to do this to you, but now you're also allowing them to get away with this scot-free. Now I want to pivot back and go back and riff back off to my introduction, right? When I spoke to people about forgiveness, they always felt that it was unjust. They always felt that it was unfair. They always felt that it was wrong. They always felt that it was just scandalous to allow someone who has wronged you and let them get off scot-free. And I used to think that it was because people had not experienced or had forgotten, right? Had forgotten had forgotten how much God had forgiven them, right? And that was my natural response. I later discovered that actually it wasn't because they had forgotten or we forget the grace that we've received from God. We forget the grace that we've received from Jesus. It is because we ourselves have never allowed and extended that grace to ourselves. We've never experienced that grace of being forgiven, right? Of having forgiven ourselves. We've never experienced the freedom that comes with forgiving yourself, right? From having been wrong. Now, if you notice, I'm not so much focusing on forgiving yourself after you've wronged someone, but I'm talking about forgiving yourself after you have been wronged, after I have been the one that has been hard done or that has been wronged, right? So there's and the reason why we struggled, and these come through in the questions, and you'll see them again today, right? They come through in the questions of why must these people be forgiven? They don't deserve that grace. It's because we ourselves don't think we deserve that grace of forgiveness because we've never extended it to ourselves. We've never experienced that grace to ourselves, right? And at the heart of that is this egocentrism that believes that you should, conversely phrased, right? If you're going to feel like, I don't know how to say this in English. You are taking me small. You are taking me young, right? That's why you did this to me. You don't think much of me, right? That's why you did that to me, right? It assumes that you are beyond and above that. Like you. There's a way you see yourself, which is not bad. It's not bad at all. There's a way you see yourself that that should protect you from that should protect you from being from having to experience that, from having to be treated in that way, right? That you feel that way, you believe that is what should be, right? So when it finally does happen, it breaks you at that level. That it breaks you at that self-confidence level. They call it self-confidence, right? It breaks you at that level to the point where it makes it difficult for you not only to forgive the other party but to forgive yourself. Is it because then their actions become something that you allowed? It's not something that they did. It's something that you allowed to happen to you, right? You made it. You allowed it to happen to you. That is why you what do you call this? That is why you struggle with not only forgiving them but also forgiving yourself. So that's a long point, a very long point that I've made here. So the second one, which is I'm hoping will not be as long, right? Is that we we struggle with forgiving ourselves, right? And maybe let me make this note, is that because we set these impossible standards for ourselves, right? We set these impossible standards for ourselves where we should be able to pick the best friends. We should be able to pick the best partners. We should be able to pick the best people to surround ourselves with, right? That's what we believe, right? We should be able to do that. We should be able to pick the perfect beings, right? Now, this is a double-edged sword because it's one that makes us expect perfection from others, but also makes us expect perfection of ourselves, right? we are we then end up seeing ourselves as victims of our bad choices, right? I should not have married such a woman. I shouldn't have married such a man. I should not have been friends with them, you know. I should have known better. I should have seen the red flags, right? As if you're omniscient, right? I should have known what they were going to do, as if you can see the future from the present, right? So it's this idea and this obsession of thinking that you are perfect enough to pick the correct people and the right people to allow into your life, but also it's this idea of expecting perfection from other people. I've seen so many times people say that extend to others the same grace that you extend to your faults, right? Extend to other people's faults the same grace that you allow or afford your own faults. I don't think that's so much a struggle as the converse, right? To extend yourself the same grace, right? To extend yourself the same grace you extend others, right? That's the difficult thing. The ability to extend to yourself the grace that you extend to others, and so that then becomes a struggle for us to do, to extend that grace for ourselves, to extend that. I don't want to call it this grace, man. I want to call it this, the understanding that you're not perfect, right? That so that you don't struggle with your loss, the loss of this idea and this picture of perfection. To not struggle with the fact that, oh, I'm not as brilliant as I thought I was. I don't have as much foresight as I thought I was. I'm not as perfect as I thought I was. I will make mistakes, right? And I am not strong. I'm not impenetrable. I'm not a fortress that can repel any attacks or any betrayals, any forms of betrayal, either through choosing the right people or even being able to foretell what other people's actions, what other people are going to do, and are going to how other people are going to betray me. So you allow yourself grace at two levels, right? You allow yourself grace at two levels. You allow yourself grace at the level of knowing, right, that y- you're not perfect, other people are not perfect, and you allow yourself the grace of knowing that you are. This is the point, man. It's been hurtling around in my head. So you allow yourself the grace of knowing that you are hurt within relationships, you are hurt within community, right? That's where betrayal comes from. It happens within relationships, right? The most painful betrayal occurs within relationships. And the more intimate and closer the relationship, the more painful the betrayal, right? So you allow yourself grace to say that what made me vulnerable is not stupidity, it's not imperfection, it's vulnerability. It's giving in to what is natural and to what is human, i.e., finding and looking for community, right? I sought relationships because nobody can survive without relationships. Nobody can survive. No man is an island, no woman is an island, right? And so the reason why I was hurt was not because I was weak. It's not because they were taking me young. It's not because I was stupid, I didn't have foresight. It's because I gave in to a natural inclination and impulse, which is to find community, to find myself in a relationship, because that's how we survive, that's how we thrive, by allowing ourselves to be in relationships, to find ourselves in relationships. We need relationships to live. We thrive and we survive and we live off relationships. We progress and we succeed as a result of relationships. And so you're not hurt because you're stupid. You are not hurt because you are insignificant, or it's because you dared to be vulnerable and you dared to find yourself in a relationship and to give into this natural inclination of being in a relationship. So that's the grace that you need to extend. I think that's the first thing you need to confront, right? In terms of in order so that's the first thing you need to deal with, you need to be aware of, you need to confront, before we now get into the hard work, right, of what this forgiveness looks like, this self-forgiveness, what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. So I hope these 2 points are with you, right? Of forgiving, of the first two things that we need to confront, right? We need to internalize, right? And we need to be aware of, before we can get to this point of now doing the work, right? So there's this awareness, which is for me is abstract, right? There's this awareness, right, that this thing has happened, right? And why am I hurt by this thing? Why am I unable to move beyond this thing? Why am I now blaming myself for having forgiven, right? Why am I internalizing what other people have done? So you need to be aware of those are abstract. Then comes the day-to-day work, right? Then comes the day-to-day work, which is the most difficult thing, right? Um, Forgiving yourself, right? This thing, that's what we're talking about. Forgiving yourself, right? On a day-to-day basis. It's easy now to forgive someone or to think you're forgiving someone because I forgave you and they go away and you don't have to think about them. They're gone. They're not there in your life. So there's this what do you call this? There's this there's this so you've forgiven them, they're gone. There's this. So I keep reading the messages here. Some of them are very interesting, more interesting than what I'm saying. So I want to go and look at them. But anyways, um so you forgave them, they're gone, they're no longer around, they've left. And somehow absence can give you an illusion of okayness, right? Absence can give you an illusion, can give an illusion of healing, of having moved past it. You don't see them, they're gone. It's only when they're around that you realize, oh, you're shaking, you don't know whether to go greet, you don't know what to do around them, right? But when they're gone, they're gone. Like you feel okay. And most of the time, we make sure that we're not in the same spaces as them, so that they don't trigger us, right? And I put these words in inverted commas because they mean way more than the daily use, right? Like trigger, toxic, trauma. We use these words very loosely, but they mean way more than what we use them for. So I'll put them in inverted commas if they do come up, right? And so they're gone, but you never go away. You're always with you, right? You're always with you. You never go away. You're always with you. And sometimes you trigger yourself, right? When you do something and you disappoint yourself and you're like, oh, there you go again, right? There you go again. You've done this again. This is what you do, right? You let yourself down. There's this negative self-speak, right, that is going on. And you see how, like, it's so broad because it speaks to and it seeps in this wound of this yeah that we fail to close when by forgiving ourselves. It bleeds and it seeps into so many other areas of our lives, right? And it can only be sutured together and stitched together by forgiveness, by when we forgive ourselves. But as long as it remains open, I saw Zenani wrote that if you don't heal from what cut you'll bleed on people that had nothing to do with your wound. Man, if you fail to forgive yourself, you'll bleed in all other areas of your life, right? So if because this wound is not closed, it's open. So every other thing that has nothing to do with what you need to forgive yourself of, every other thing is a cause for self-immolation. It's a cause for beating yourself up about it, because this wound keeps festering, right? This is exactly why this happened to you. You blame yourself. This is exactly why this happened to you. This is why it occurred to you, because you're like this. There you go again, letting yourself down. So this negative self-speak continues to haunt us, right, on a daily basis, because we live with ourselves, right? So point number one, right, towards forgiving yourself, right, is that stop. It's simple, right? It's so simple. Stop talking negatively to yourself. That's it. Like, stop. Just stop speaking negatively to yourself. You deserve not just kindness, right, in terms of how people treat you, but you deserve kindness in terms of how you treat yourself, right? You deserve that kindness. you you can't expect from people what you can't give to yourself, right? We make this joke on social media, saying, girls want money from guys, like, but why tend attacking at Nigangi? Oh, why do you have standards for other people that you don't have for yourself? I mean, I don't want to get into that conversation. People have standards with other people's money that they don't have, that standards that they don't necessarily afford for themselves. And people just joke around about that. And I think for me, it makes this thing, it makes this point so true, right? That you can't expect, you can't be affirming to other people and fail to give that affirmation to yourself, right? You can't have high standards for how you treat other people, but not have those same standards when it comes to grace. So you've got high standards when it comes to judging yourself. You've got high standards when you come to judging yourself. But how do you have those standards of judging yourself when you've never spoken yourself to having the when you've never spoken yourself into having those standards? Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? You have these high standards of how you should perform, how you should deliver perfection, right? But you've never spoken yourself into perfection. You've never coached yourself into perfection. You've never prayed yourself into perfection, right? You've never hugged yourself into perfection. You yeah. So you afford people grace because you affirm them, you work them to those positions where you can have, but you never do that. You never put in the work where you can produce those high standards. And part of putting in the work of producing those high standards is affirming yourself. You're a good person, right? There's nothing wrong with you, right? You're not written stupid on your forehead, right? You're not unfeeling. You're not deserving of what people do to you, right? You're genuinely good, right? So that needs to be a song, right? Let me use this word. You need to coach yourself to the perfection you expect of yourself. You can quote me on that. You need to coach yourself to the perfection, right, that you expect of yourself. And the beginning of this, right, is that the negative self-speak needs to stop, right? The negative self-speak needs to stop. You need to be a bit more kind to yourself, right? You need to be a bit more affirming of yourself. And if there are any gentlemen that are on the topic, I know the sensitive language is not something that we identify with, right? But we need to be able to, as well as I use the word coach yourself. You need to coach yourself to wellness. You need to coach yourself to this perfection that you expect of yourself. You need to invest in yourself, of course. There are other aspects or facets of that come with this idea of being perfect. And the second one, and then I'm going to stop my chow and allow questions. The second one that I'm going to say, and I think this is I think the main one, right, is that you're not the sum total of the things you do randomly, right? Let me say this again. You're not the sum total of the things you do randomly, right? Who you are is what you do consistently, right? Not what you do randomly, not what you do sporadically, right? Intermittently. You are the sum total of the things you do consistently, not what you do randomly, sporadically, right? Follow me on this one. So you're not the sum total of the things you do randomly. You are what you do consistently, right? I say this because it's also how we should look at people, right? People are not the sum total of things they do once off. But once it starts becoming consistent, habitual behavior, then that's who they are, right? You're not the sum total of what of the disappointments, right, that you subject yourself to sporadically. You're not the sum total of the disappointments you subject yourself to randomly, right? So if you mull over the disappointments, they start looking like the sum total of your life. But if you step back a bit to affirm yourself, then you start looking for evidence of your own achievements, your own successes, your own achievements, things, your own victories, things you have had to overcome. You look around and you suddenly realize, oh man, there's more good, there are more achievements, there's more success, there's more to celebrate, which I have done with God, in partnership with God, of course, which I have achieved in partnership with God, than the moments where I've let myself down, right? So on the balance of the evidence, I'm not the sum total of this that I'm unhappy about, because there's less of this than that, right? There's more of what I should be proud of. There are more achievements. There's more of what I should be celebrating about myself than these random acts of self-betrayal, right? If you wanna put it that way, right? So you're not the sum total of what people do to you randomly. You're not the sum total of people wronging you. So that cannot be how you run your life. It cannot be how you see and view yourself, right? Because it's too random. The sample size is too small, right? To give us an outcome, right? So you need what is more abundant, what is more consistent in your life, right? Look for those consistencies, look for the things that are consistent in your life, and let them be the ones that determine who you are, as opposed to these sporadic random things. And I promise you, chances are when you look at those, right, you then suddenly realize, oh no, um, i'm actually not as I'm not as bad as I thought I was. I'm not as stupid as I thought I was. I'm not as dumb as I thought I was. There's evidence to the contrary, and there's more evidence of that than these little things that I keep mulling over. Um, and let me just say, they say you need about four good things. Four, right? Good things. You need to be aware of four good things, right? Four good things about yourself. You need to be aware of them at any given moment. Four good things about yourself, right? In order to get over one negative thing. Now, that's amazing, guys. You need four positive affirmations, right? To get over one negative criticism or one negative experience. Four. Four. And I keep saying four, like my friend. Four positive affirmations in order to get over one negative thing, right, about yourself. And I'm going to ask you this question. If all you ever do is speak negatively about yourself, do you think, and if all you do is sum up your whole self in your whole life, you know, as these negative, sporadic negative things, right? Let me find the English for that so that I can close this part nicely. So tell me, if all you ever do is focus on the negatives and speak negatively to yourself and talk down to yourself, if that's all you ever do, right? To speak negatively to yourself, talk down to yourself, no affirmation. If all you ever do is hunt for the negative things and never look for the good things, if all you do is to summarize your life as the sum total of the things that had to happen randomly, when are you going to find the four that you will need in order to overcome the one? Right? When are you going to find the four that you're going to need in order to overcome the one? So the idea of self-affirmation, the idea of finding the good things that you consistently do, is not a matter of self-aggrandizement. It's not an egotistic thing. It's a matter of survival, right? It's a matter of survival. Let me say that again. Looking for these positive things in your life, the self-affirmation, self-love, the coaching yourself to perfection, is not a matter of being egotistic. It's a matter of survival. You need the four things, right? You need them. You need the positive things to counter. And as you realize, you need more of the good things to counter the bad. That's why the bad weighs us down so much. And so I'm going to stop there for now. Of course, I can't stop here, Mam Chawe. I can't stop here. I can't stop here.
Okay.
I have to say this, and I'm going to close with this thought again, right?
Okay.
That um, that when God looked at you, right? When God looked at you and loved you, right? Like God looked at you and loved you, and He thought, "What can I do to stay connected to this one? Right? What can I do?" Right? He says, "Man, love requires a sacrifice. Love requires a gift." Right? And He looked around, and He couldn't find anything that was good enough for you. He couldn't find anything that was good enough for you outside of himself. He thought, man, the only thing, the only thing with which I can honor my love for this one is my son. It's
Ish.
myself, right? That's the only thing befitting. It's not that the son is the only perfect gift. No, in terms of him being able to satisfy, you know, the demands of justice and righteousness. No, it is that the Son is the only fitting gift for the demands of God's love. That's it. And God's love for who? For you, right? And I think God is smarter than us. God knows more than us. And yet in all his omniscience, omnipotence, he still found us worthy of loving to the point of giving his son for us. And I say, if God can love me this much, if God can have so much grace towards me, right? Come on, guys. I can
Well, I
afford a
always
teaspoon.
thought.
I can
Yeah.
afford a teaspoon of grace for myself.
Mm.
Come on. I can afford a half a cup of grace for myself. Come on. I can't live on the diet of poison all my life,
Yeah.
when my life has been about love. Like I'm here because of love. I am
Mm.
because of love. I've got a future because of love. Why is my present littered with so much poison?
Mm.
Exenje mtase. I saw young, I
Ay.
was here as well. Exenje mtase, kata kata nje spoon. Not sentloni, but self-love. Kata kata nje spoon nje. Say grace every morning. Okay, I'm gonna
For
stop there.
you. Oh, wow. For this. Let me tell you that you saw the comments, and I almost felt bad because I'm distracting your thought processes there. You saw the comments, you saw the questions. I may not be able to go through all of them in terms of
Yeah.
the questions, but let me do this. I thought I was going to do it at the end, but let me do it now. Okay,
Yeah.
ladies, here it goes. Remember, we said we've got 5 guests at the Theatre of Grace conference. So I've given you the 4. The 4 are on the poster. Well, you guessed it. This morning we are sitting with our guest number 5. We have been able to have the conversation with Mfu. Let me tell you, Mfu, it is not okay. Of course, I absolutely enjoy having you at the conference. Last year was amazing, but I kept having people saying, "I hope he's coming back again. I hope he's coming back
But
again. He has to come back." So
yeah.
here we go. Here we go. Pastor Blose, guys, is also going to be coming at the Theatre of Grace conference in October. So, guys, if you have not yet registered, please, you are going to join Okala. And I see those people. We will go live here on Facebook, and people are going to be crying, but how did I miss? How am I not there? And last year was amazing. But let me tell you, God keeps whispering things to me. This year's conference is going to be even better. I've tried to put, wherever you are on Facebook, I've tried to put in the comments for the information for where you can register. Please do so. Full conference is almost 4,000 rand. You get 50 rand change, and then day visitors, but that are coming daily, it's 1.3. And then for the Sabbath, you don't want to come only on the Sabbath. It's nice. Sabbath, of course, it becomes the pinnacle. I promise you want to come from Thursday evening. All right, you want to come in from Thursday evening. So register. We are closing on the 4th, guys. We were asked for an extension. We are closing on the 4th. I must just say, for this, we have a large contingent coming from Botswana. We were talking about this on Thursday evening. There's a lot of people coming from Botswana, and more people are coming from Swaziland. So if you guys are sitting around Joburg and you're like, I'm going to register after June, by the time you register, you are not going to be there, because the people coming from far, they can only be staying. It's only a flight, my friend. Phew, phew. But for our internationals,
to get the spouse allowance from GC, man.
That's all. Come on, find a way. Where's Intel? You and Paco can work something out and make it here. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. And we want to address the questions that came. Some of them are very sensitive. And so I'm thinking to myself, one of the sessions at the conference, because we are then able to ask questions live in real time.
Yeah.
Give you more time. One of the plenaries that we actually need from you is one on forgiveness, where we can put the questions down. Now there is this one. I put it up here and I tried to summarize it as follows: forgiveness and reconciliation. But let me say this before I go to it. I love what you said about negative self-talk. I had a friend in our young days, because I mean so every time a relationship would end, and I think she would have 2-3 bad guys, and then she says, you know what, there is something wrong with me. I keep choosing them. I keep choosing the guy. So she would make it about herself. Until one day we woke up and said, my friend, the more you tell yourself this, the more you're going to choose these guys. So as you are saying all this negative self-talk about you, it's better to do so, but you are also conditioning yourself. You're also priming yourself, and that it becomes the lens with which you look for the guys. So for 5 years, you're gonna keep doing it because that is how you've labeled yourself as that. She woke up to that. In the end, she married a very good guy. So I think sometimes it is not just so much that you do that and it's wrong, but in doing it, you are also conditioning yourself.
Yes, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes,
so because you've been treated badly, then I've been treated badly because I deserve to be treated badly. And because I deserve to be treated badly, I look forward and I look for opportunities to be treated badly. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where you even afford what do you call this? I'm not afford, you allow and you accommodate and you accept mediocre treatment, right? And get yourself into mediocre relationships because you feel that's what you deserve. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, you're right. You're quite right. Yeah.
And as much as you complain about it, it's what you actually keep churning out.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for this, and this I picked it up here, but I'll bring a few of the questions, and that is forgiveness and reconciliation. And I were talking the other day about cancel culture, cutting people off, and toxic people. Do they two go together? In other words, if I have forgiven, do I then have to? And I mean, this might be an unfair question to ask you, but I just like to hear your thoughts off the cuff. Am I having to? And I'm not going to broadly say this. You know, people that I went to high school that I offended, I don't see them. But within the for example, with immediate family, extended family, people I go to church with, you know, I've been hurt. I've forgiven, but do I need them in my space? Do I want to have them in my space? Because what coupled with that is the fear of being hurt again. There is a notion, misconception or not, that if I forgive them and reconcile, I've placed myself in the middle again, or I've placed myself with the possibility of being hurt again. And some of those hurts are really, really, really deep. Yeah. I was hurt, and family member or someone close. This is what happened. I've forgiven them. Your thoughts on that? On the proximity after I've forgiven?
Yeah. So 3 things, right? One, so forgiveness and reconciliation are not necessarily what do you call this, twins that must always go together, right? Reconciliation is a function of the quality of the relationship. Forgiveness is a spiritual duty, right? That's what I call it. Forgiveness is a spiritual duty. Reconciliation is a function of the relationship, right? I'll tell you what I mean by that. That's why the South African idea of reconciliation is a bit loose, because what are we reconciling, right? What relationship was there that we need to be reconciled to, right? So what we needed more than reconciliation in SA was conciliation. In other words, an opportunity to facilitate and foster proximity so that we can create a new form or another kind of relationship, because the one that was there before wasn't a healthy relationship, and it wasn't a relationship, so to speak, right? So when we talk about reconciliation, we're talking about honoring a relationship. It's a function and a response to a relationship. And what do I mean? So forgiveness is something that you do, right? As a spiritual duty, you do for yourself, you do in honor of God, you do empowered by God, and you do by the grace of God. That's forgiveness, right? It's forgiveness is internal, it's individual. But once you talk about reconciliation, you're now involving another person, and there are 3 things that I say are needed, right? And you need to consider when doing that. Number 1, like I said, is, so what relationship do we need to be reconciled to, for example? So what was the nature of the relationship before the offense, before the what was happening then, right? And was the relationship so valuable and so important? Maybe let me start with this. The offense, did it put your life in danger? Is it what was it criminal in nature, right? Are you safe around that person, right? For me, that's important, because when we talk about reconciliation, right, what are we reconciling? Are we taking you back into the jaws of the devil? Are we taking you back into a prison where your life is in constant danger, right? So what was the nature of the offense, right? And if you going back means that your life is in danger again, then don't reconcile, because that's not a spiritual thing. It's a matter of safety. It's a matter of saving your life. Forgiveness can occur with you running away to save your life, right?
Yeah.
That's why forgiveness doesn't need an apology, because it doesn't need the offender in order
Yeah.
for it to occur, right? So that you don't need to go to the offender to get an apology, so that it empowers your forgiveness, right? It's an independent agential thing, right? It can happen alone. You've got your agency to carry out forgiveness. So when you're talking about reconciliation, however, this is what you need to consider. Is your life in danger? Are you safe around that person, right? Physically, mentally, are you safe around that person before we
Yeah.
even reconcile? Two, right? It is the relationship now. This is the first point. I wanted to make this the first point, but let me make this the second point, right? The relationship, right? Is the quality of the relationship of such a nature that it is greater than the offense? Because what you need now, after
Yeah.
having forgiven and living with this person, right? And you'll see the commonality here. What you need now, after the forgiveness and you are reconciling, this means that you're going to see this person every day in your life, right? Do they have the capacity to help you when those things start haunting you again? Do they have the emotional bandwidth, right, to hold you in safety, and to support you when you break down again, right? Because they are there now as a reminder of the betrayal, right? The relationship, is it enough? Does it provide enough healing, enough warmth, enough encouragement, enough life, right, to carry you through this difficult and transition, right? Is the relationship worth it? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Is the relationship worth risking another hurt for, right? Are you saying that, Tato, I know she
Yeah.
did this, but man, when we're good, we're good. We're so good
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I want to go back to her so that I can go through this, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with inviting the person who betrayed you to help you walk through the path of healing. Kakateng, they're the ones who started this. And if
Yeah.
they're of such a quality and of such a nature that they're able to hold you in safety, they're able to hold you in kindness through that whole process, right? That's what I would consider before going back. But if I look at this relationship, is it worth saving? Is it worth fighting for? Is it worth risking,
Yeah.
another betrayal for? That consideration for me is quite important. But also then, thirdly, when we reconcile, are we reconciling because out of nostalgia? Is it
Uh,
nostalgic? Like, I'm reconciling because we used to be good,
yeah.
this thing,
When it
and you're
was
hoping,
good.
yeah, this thing was so nice before. Or are we reconciling out of potential, that we know that what will come out of this after this is going to be greater than anything we've ever had before, right? This is going
Yeah.
to be more. This is going to be more meaningful than anything
Yeah.
we've ever had before. Yeah. Oh, and then the fourth one is there remorse. You can't reconcile without remorse. You
Yeah.
can't reconcile without remorse. And when I talk about remorse, I'm not talking about an apology. I'm talking
Yeah.
about someone who I'm sorry, I'm running through this, right? But when we talk about remorse, we're not talking about an apology. We're talking about someone who is, one, showing disdain for their actions. Someone who says, man, I recognize and realize that what I did to you was ugly, for the ugliness of it. Like, it's ugly.
Yeah.
Whether you forgive me or not, that thing was ugly. What I did was ugly. It was
Yeah.
bad. It was evil, right? Is this person conscious of just how evil their actions were? Number two, have they made efforts to make sure that they don't repeat the same thing again, right? Some people will
Yeah.
say, go to therapy, go to counseling. If you can't stop cheating, go to counseling, go to therapy. If you can't
Yeah.
stop betraying people, if you can't stop lying, go to therapy and find out, why am I this way? So have you done that? Have you done the hard work of making sure, or the person you want to be reconciled to, have they done the hard work of making sure that they're not capable of the same actions and the same behavior as before, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
those are
So
the three things. Four
it's
things, yeah.
deep. Yeah, it's deep. But I love the conditions for reconciliation and yet for forgiveness. There are no conditions, but it
Yeah,
doesn't mean they're not equal. The two
yeah,
are not
yeah.
equal. Like I said, this is deep because there are follow-up questions to that, but I don't want to be too unfair. This is another one that is related. I think Uxoli was also asking the question about forgiving and forgetting. So I
Yeah.
want to lead with this one. As is known to what can I do if a person I forgave keeps on triggering me? So, and I think that is related to forgiving and forget, because sometimes we say that
Yeah.
easily. We say forgive and forget.
And forget. Yeah.
Yeah, but if that person keeps triggering you, but for how long? Look, you know what? One of the things I used to say, I say to God, the whole idea of forgive and forget. If that you can't say that to me. One of the most offensive things that I find, I have beautiful people, multiracial friends, but I said to my white friends, when it comes to apartheid, my friend, don't talk about forget. Don't say that to us, because we need to know that it is in my best interest to forget, my friend. Really, I need to forget.
Yeah.
I need to forget. But the offender mustn't tell me that. It mustn't offend me and then tell me forget. But so I want you to talk about forgiving and forgetting, and the whole issue of that person that has hurt me. I've forgiven them, but I'm still being triggered. So I want you to talk about that. But there's just a question I wanted to answer about conference, guys. We are at the Lakes. Somebody asked, where are we? We are at the Lakes Hotel and Conference Center. It's in Benoni, Johannesburg, but next to it is Birchwood. All right. So if we are full and we are approaching that, if we fill up at the Lakes and we still have a space at the conference venue, then those that will be sleeping will then be sleeping at Birchwood Hotel, which is next to that one. So everything is hosted at the Lakes, but for spillovers will be at Birchwood. Now, so who stays at the Lakes then? First come, first serve. The first people to register will be the ones that will be staying at the Lakes. And this is where Botswana is coming in. They have been bombarding me. Have you made sure that we are staying at the place? Yes, we have. Ladies, you are staying at the Lakes. Okay. But if you register on the 4th of June, you will still be at the conference. You'll enjoy it. We will have a shuttle going from Birchwood to the Lakes. So not to stress about that one either. Okay. All right. For this.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad Botswana is coming, by the way. So
in numbers.
No, they always come in numbers. I mean, even at STASA, they used to come in buses. They always support events. And so I'm glad Botswana is coming again. I can't say they're my favorite because we're here, and then the other parts like Eastern Cape, Gauteng, but I can't say they're my favorite, but but because my other favorites are here. So so yeah, triggers. This is so broad again. So what one, forgive and forget. We never forget. We never, God says, your sins have I separated from you, and I've separated from you, right? And I've thrown them into the depths of the ocean, right? I mean, God knows exactly where your sins are. He hasn't forgotten. He knows exactly where your sins are. He's thrown them there in the depths of the ocean. He's decided to keep them there. He knows where they are. He hasn't forgotten. He hasn't forgotten their location. But the difference is, and the point is that when, are you still there, ma'am? Oh yeah. The point is that, right. Funny enough, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's why I put it on.
Yeah, so God hasn't forgotten the sins. They're still there, right? They're still at the depths of the ocean. He knows exactly where they are. But he comes back from there to you, and the way he deals with you is though he doesn't know where the sins are. Right? So the forgetting is not meant to talk about what's in here or what's in here, right? What's in your heart. It's meant to talk about how we treat each other, right? So after I've forgiven you, I can't keep reminding you of what I've forgiven you of, right? That's the forgetting part, right? Is that's why that forgiveness is a gift of grace. I'm giving you something you don't deserve. Because I forgave you of something I still remember, or something that still haunts me, but you'll never see it, right? Because I don't want you to live with the guilt of what you did. So me treating you like I've forgotten, I'm saving you from the guilt of what you did, of experiencing because that's what forgiveness is. It's grace. It's saving someone who doesn't deserve it, who can never earn it, from the gravity of their actions, right? And so I carry this for me. I carry this, on my own. I carry this for you on your behalf, so that I never remember. Like I owe you money, Mom Child. Right? And then one day we're out with the kids, and then you see me bawling, like just I haven't I just and you're thinking about your money. Yeah, but there at that moment you realize
somebody bought a car, they owe me money. I'm like, my money, bruh.
My money. But at that moment, right? Okay, I'll talk about this. I just got a thought now. At that moment, and this is what's so difficult about forgiving others and forgiving yourself, is that before you get to that point, you have to humanize the person you resent, whether it's
Yes.
yourself or the other person. You have to humanize them. That's very unfair. It feels unjust to humanize them. Here's how you
Yeah.
humanize me at that moment. I'm balling, I'm balling, I'm balling. And you've got this thing, but you have to humanize me at that moment. It's like, hey, but this guy is with his kids,
Yeah.
and he's being a dad. You
Mm.
know, hey, yeah, he's not wasting it. He's spending it on his kids. He's being a father right now. So let me hang on to my resentment and to my anger, right? Let me just
My
hang on.
humanity is jumping in. Yes. What about my kids?
Yeah, right. Because see,
About my turn.
you spoke about it yesterday in the lesson study, Gagat, right?
Yeah.
You talk about the oppression, right? Um, for you to oppress someone, you need to disrobe them of their humanity, right? In order for you to remain angry at someone, you need to disrobe them of their humanity. How do you do that? You make them the sum total of the offense. They are not anyone, they are nothing. They are that thing that they did to you, right? So
Yeah.
that disrobes them of their humanity. So at that moment when you have to act like you've forgotten and
Mm.
you've forgiven me, right? You have to humanize me, right? And by the way, you're not doing something that I can ever ask you to do.
Mm.
I can't, I don't have a right to do that, right? It's a gift of grace. So
Yeah.
that's what we mean when we talk about forgive and forget. It's not
Yeah.
about erasing, right? But it's not making it show to the
Yeah.
people that we're forgiven.
Mm.
Then when someone talks about triggers, right? And by the way, remember, for me to be in your life after I've done that is because you've decided that the relationship is worth fighting
Mm.
for. We need to
Develop.
reconcile, right?
Mm.
But there needs to be, so I've spoken about reconciliation, I've spoken about the boundaries and the conditions that apply to the other party. Now I'm going to talk about the conditions that apply to the party that's getting triggered, right? Um, what are those triggers? Have they been communicated? And sometimes you don't even know them, right? And the reason why
Mm.
you don't know them is because you haven't done the work, right? So,
Mm.
and this is what I call the tyranny of forgiveness, right? So we've laid conditions and asked the other person to do the work, but you were hurt, right? You were injured. So there's work that needs to be done as well on your end. So as they
Mm.
go to therapy, you also go to therapy to find healing. So, and what are these triggers? What are the remnants of
Mm.
this experience that are still with you? And you need
Yeah.
to know them, and they need to be communicated to the other person, to the other party. Jonga, if you don't answer your phone, you are triggering me because I think you're cheating on me again, right?
Yeah.
Jonga, I don't want to see you on Facebook because I don't because every time I see you there, I'm thinking you're planning something again. Jonga,
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, don't ask me for money again or yet, right?
Yeah.
Let me be
Mm.
the one who gives it to you, because I'm still bleeding from that. But you can never come to that moment of self-awareness, right, unless you've done the work. So it's easy to call things triggers, right? And some of the things that we call triggers are not necessarily triggers, but an annoyance.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
I'll tell you what I mean by that. Like, it's an annoyance. It's not a trigger. You are annoyed that this person is going on and is living as though life is normal,
Mm.
even though I'm still hurting. That's not a trigger.
Yeah.
It's an annoyance because you don't think they should be experiencing that joy. They should be experiencing that normalcy, uh,
Mm.
uh, because you are still struggling and you are still suffering. That's, and I'm using the word annoyance loosely, right?
Yeah.
And a trigger would be like something that takes you back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's behavior that is consistent with what preceded the event, that occurred during the event. It's something that has to do with what has happened in the past, right? Not a usual or a normal annoyance, but
Mm.
ulele
Yeah.
anlalang. That's not a
Yeah.
trigger. That's not a trigger. Yes, you're just annoyed that this person is experiencing this freedom and this bliss.
Uhlanjani? Oh,
Yeah,
Uhlanjani. And yet I'm
Bushanja,
here.
vuka. You're just annoyed, but how is this person experiencing this when I'm not? Can I just say
Yeah.
this, Mam Chawe, right? Maybe explain what I mean by the tyranny of forgiveness, right?
Mm.
Because forgiveness can become tyrannical, right?
Yeah.
It can become, a tyrant,
Yeah.
right? Not
Yeah.
only in other people's lives, but also in
Like
our
for
lives.
you.
And
Mm.
yeah, and so I forgive you, right? I forgive you. But me forgiving you,
Mm.
okay, yeah, me being hurt doesn't mean I'm perfect.
Yeah.
Me as the head party, it doesn't mean I'm perfect. Me forgiving you doesn't mean I'm innocent, right?
Yeah.
I'm still capable of doing bad things. I'm still capable. I still have toxic traits, right? Even after I've forgiven you, I'm not innocent. I'm not perfect. Even after
Yeah.
I've forgiven you. But what we do is that when we forgive people, we then assume a position of innocence.
Chip.
Right? Yeah, chip on our shoulder. So I assume a position of
Acrimony.
innocence. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you do something, right? And I jump on you, with the wrath of the fleas from 1,000 camels, and I just jump on you. Sometimes because I've still got anger that's remaining behind from past offenses, you know, but also because I feel justified in being angry with you this much because you got away with it last time. So so I become a tyrant, right? And the second one is that I then don't expect you to confront me if I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Because
Who are
when
you?
I forgave you, right? So you can't be, you can't be bringing this up as if I become a tyrant that not only excessively punishes you when you wrong me, but I become a tyrant when I expect you to tolerate the intolerable in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hectic. That is hectic. Like I said, this thing can be very deep because because you, and let me say this, it might be unfair, but we as women, when we deal with forgiveness, we speak mainly from the victim side of things. Stuff has happened. Look, to be fair though, more stuff happens to us as women than us offending people. So we don't have that kind of, but we do things to each other. Let me not go too far. But we also do things to each other. But often when we talk about it from here. But we also run the risk, and I love the use of the word tyranny. We also run the risk of, in our state of being wronged, that we can put fuel to fire in our response to the wrong. That we just, whatever our responses, can actually make things 10 times worse, such that you walk away. I sometimes and I can be vulnerable. Yeah, I talk a lot. So sometimes in my talking, I make a mess of this whole thing because I spoke myself completely
Into trouble, yeah.
but I've learned to give myself grace. This one, we'll just take one more and close. This one is related to what we have said, but I just thought, let me bring it in. Basically, what Paul is talking about is if I still feel awkward, is it a sign that I have not forgiven? Sorry,
You just
yeah. So when we talk about absence, so absence does give an illusion of okayness. But then isn't it that forgiveness is not a feeling? So how do I know that I've really forgiven? I won't feel it. I often wonder about that myself. I said, "Hey, doesn't it? Didn't I forgive if I still feel awkward around them?" And this is typical of like church relationships, where you have to be in each other's spaces, but you are not in each other's spaces every day of the week. But sometimes once a week, or you will meet at an event, and you still feel awkward. But why am I feeling awkward? But haven't I forgiven? So I don't know if you got thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah. That's I've got people like that I see. I'm not forgiven. I've moved past it, but when you're around them, there's still that awkwardness. Here in the house, we call it awkwardity. There's still that awkwardity around them. And I think the awkwardness is not so much a sign that forgiveness has not been dispersed or distributed or given out. Can I just make an observation, Mam Chow? I'll remember my point. Do you see how hard it is for us to forgive ourselves, and even to talk about it? So when we talk about forgiving other people, usually the discussion isn't about how I forgive. It's about what the other person needs to do in order for them to be forgiven. So there's this diversion. And right today we're talking about forgiving yourself, and the topic the discussion is on how we forgive others.
Yeah.
We're struggling to just even zoom in and zone in on this idea of forgiving ourselves. So we'll talk about that. It's almost, but I'm not judging. I'm saying I'm just observing. Yeah, at least we've broached the subject and we can start thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we don't have the language to
Yeah.
talk about it. We don't have the language to, you know, to understand what we're feeling and what we're thinking so that we can ask questions. So that's why we need to meet in October, so that we
Yeah.
can chat about it even more. But
Yeah.
so the awkwardness for me has always been about the relationship has changed, right? After that,
Mm.
I kind of now know you. I know you, but then I also know this about you,
Mm.
right? And so the relationship has completely changed. So it's almost as if I'm meeting a new person, although you're not completely and wholly a new person, but I'm meeting someone who has a dimension to them that I did not and I was not aware of.
Mm. Yeah.
And I'm struggling with how do I relate to this person now, right? Remember, I've
Mm.
still got those internalized
Yeah.
thoughts and,
Yeah.
about what it is that you thought of me when you did this. And you've
Yeah.
never told me.
Yeah.
You've never
Mm.
told me what drove you to do this. What did you think of me when you did that, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
haven't done that. And so when we in the absence of those conversations, the meetings are going to be very awkward,
Yeah.
um, because I don't know what you think of me. Do you still think I'm stupid? In fact,
Yeah.
I forgave you.
Yeah.
Does it make you think I'm dumb, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, so there's that awkwardness, but also now I know this about you, and I have to think, but who are you, like, in light of this? Who are you, like, what are you? So how do I relate to you? So
Mm.
essentially, it's not knowing your place in the other person's life. You
Mm.
have given them a place through forgiving them. You have sort of, and maybe even reconciling. You know
Mm.
where they stand in your own life, but you don't
Yeah.
know where you stand in their lives, right?
Yeah. Mm.
And that needs conversations, very mature conversations to be had, with them. In order, that's what stops the awkwardness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me that's what I've seen in my own experience, and maybe anecdotally,
Mm.
I give this example. Yeah.
But sometimes the awkwardness is yours.
Mm,
Uh, in other words, the one, they don't know that you are feeling awkward. Two, they are not feeling awkward, but we don't know. So
mm,
so you are the one that's got to deal with the awkwardness. But I think it speaks directly to the topic that you talk about.
mm,
Um, because one of the things that we do it of other people, but we do it ourselves as well, is that we
mm.
take certain actions or reactions, and then we judge our reactions.
Yeah.
And we give them titles. So the fact that I feel awkward, I think it must mean that I have not forgiven them. So
Forgiven, yes.
yeah, so I become judge, jury, and everything of my own actions. And yet you are the best person to know. You're the best
Mm,
person to know if you have forgiven, if not forgiven. This, I
mm.
think, you've attended to for this
Yeah,
around the topic of reconciliation, where
yeah.
somebody is asking, am I wrong to then put conditions?
Mm,
Like avoiding the space again or avoiding anything to do with them. I don't think so. You know best.
mm,
You know best around that. Now, I think the last one then, for and then I will let you close it. It's TD Jakes brought this concept a long time ago about letting go, letting go.
mm,
And it was the thing that I think it was actually a conference speaking to women about letting go, and
mm,
and we speak about it in the context of letting go of forgiving and letting go of offenses that people have. What is the right English is now starting to go. When people have offended us,
yeah.
that when we've decided to forgive, then we also ought to let go of that. And
Mm,
the reason for that, and he makes this point, and I agree with it, is that offenses continue to come.
mm,
And often they may continue to come from the same person in the context
yeah.
of relationships, intimate relationships. Offenses
Mm,
will come, they will often come from the same person, hence that verse of forgiving,
mm,
70 times 7. But not only do they come from that person, that they may come from another person.
mm,
So if you continue to hoard them,
mm,
in a given day, you will go back to bed heavy and miserable because you are holding on to everything that happened to you on that particular day, that particular week, that particular month. By the time you are 40, my friend, you will look 80 because you held on
mm.
to everything that has happened to you.
Yeah.
But this morning, what I've gotten from you, and I'd like you, I think even as we wrap this up, is that sometimes we hold on, and this is what I find grounds me. It grounds me. And you've spoken to it, but you've given us those 4 points. But I think it's maybe as a way of rounding it up, is that we hold on to our own offenses, of ourselves
Yeah.
or of other people. Do you
Mm.
understand? Because sometimes
Mm.
I have not hurt me, but I've hurt another, and
Mm.
I know I have, and I feel completely bad about. They may have forgiven me, but I am still holding on to that mistake I made. I once made an example that kind of about 2 rand about we were in high school.
Mm.
I stole my auntie's 2 rand in high school. Now, if I'm holding on to that kind of thing, so it's one thing to talk about letting go of the things that I have done to other people. I mean, that they've done to me, but me dusting myself off almost regularly, because as often as people offend us, we also are offenders of other
Yeah.
people, and we are also offenders of our own selves. So
Mm.
I just wanted you to talk to that of for us, letting go for us. And
Yeah.
I guess bringing it back to the topic of extending that grace to us on a
That's good.
practical basis, because there are people, my friends, who made a mistake, and I think I make this point in the book. They made a mistake 2, 3 years ago, and they will not dare to try again that particular
Mm.
issue, regardless of all the evidence that says, you know what, this thing is actually worth pursuing.
Mm.
No, 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 I did this, and this is what happened, and I hurt people in that process, and I was also hurt. I
Yeah.
can't do that again. So I don't know. I wanted you to speak to that.
All right. So yeah, the idea of letting go is that, and here's why it's important, is because just hanging on to it keeps it alive, right? What keeps it alive is how how profoundly painful it was, but also what keeps it alive is hanging on to it. Like, it just keeps it alive, but not only just keeps it alive. And excuse me, I once had a conversation on Funsu Papu about this, about the idea of suffering, right? Especially in
Mm,
relationships. Is that um, so something happens, right? It's in the past. Then you deal with the repercussions of that. You deal
mm,
with the repercussions, the fallout from that. You struggle through that. You work through that. You work through that. The self-doubt, the insecurity, this down talk and all of that. That comes from what happened in the past. That thing happened.
mm,
That event happened, right?
mm.
But holding on to it is
Yeah,
a way of making it happen all the time,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Let me say that again, right? So it happens normally. This is the trajectory. It happens, then there's a fallout, and we have to deal with that. We have to deal with
Yeah.
that, healing, overcoming, working through the insecurities, uh, but when I hold on to it, right, and I hold on to it, I make it happen every day of my life, right? I wake up, I think about it, I replay it. It's still as fresh as it was, and the
Mm,
reaction again is as if is the same as it was on that day. That causes you to suffer, right?
mm,
That makes you suffer. So it's so you keep replaying the self. I spoke to you about this the other day, where there's a video of a significant event in my life that I don't watch because I don't
mm.
want to relive that moment, right? I don't want to
Yeah,
relive that
yeah.
moment over and over again. So I just
Mm,
don't watch that thing. Why? I don't want to keep playing that thing because I've already lived that moment. I've dealt
yeah.
with the fallout of that moment, right? And so I don't want to live it again, then have to do the dealing with the fallout again, then living
Mm,
again, relive it, and then deal with the fallout again. Then the next day I relive it and deal with the fallout again, right? So I just don't play it. I let it go. I let that thing go. I just mute it. You put it on mute. You stop it from playing. Then deal
mm.
with the fallout, right?
Yeah, yeah.
At least that's what I'm carrying now, right? Just that's what you're carrying, just to deal with. Stop playing it over and over again, right? You're not gonna find anything new there. It's not gonna
Yeah.
be less painful. It's not gonna be I don't know, more painful than it was. but it'll just continue being painful. That's what
Yeah.
it'll do. Is it's just you keep it alive, and that makes you suffer. That's what suffering is. That's what causes you to
Yeah.
suffer, right? So the need
Mm.
to let it go, right? The need to let it go is to stop it from continuing to play and keeping you stuck in the same place, so that you
Yeah.
can do the work of moving on and growing, right? The reason
Yeah.
why it's lasted for 3 years is not because it's a condition that lasts for 3 years. It's because you've played it every day for 3 years, right? You've
Mm.
played it every single day for 3 years, and for 3 years, you've for every day of those 3 years, you've been in that same scene of trauma. You've been at
Mm.
that same scene of betrayal, right? And
Yeah.
so you've never had to do the work of the fallout from having. So you've been stuck in the same place for the 3 years. So 3 years have passed, but you
Yeah.
are still living 3 years ago in as far as your trauma is concerned, right? So it
Mm.
needs to be, yeah, you need to stop playing it. You need to stop playing it, right?
Yeah.
That for me, that's what letting go is. You need to stop playing it so that I can do the work of recovering from it, right?
Mm.
And so
Mm.
some people say, what how do I know I'm ready to forgive? How do I know that I've forgiven, right? It's when the idea of being in the same setup doesn't scare you.
Mm.
The idea of
Mm.
being in a similar setup doesn't scare you, doesn't make you shake. And what do I mean by this? I don't mean like the idea of getting back with the person who betrayed you doesn't scare you anymore or whatever. But
Mm.
the idea of being in a relationship doesn't scare you, doesn't traumatize you. When you're
Yeah.
no longer saying, "Oh, abantu,"
Mm.
people are animals. When you are in a place where you're able to say, "I'm ready to love again. I'm ready to build something. I'm ready to trust. I'm ready." How do I know that I've forgiven
Mm.
when the
Yeah.
event has not changed who you are in order to
Yeah.
accommodate other people's brokenness, right?
Mm.
You so people do things to us because out of brokenness. And I'm
Yeah.
humanizing them. Ne? People
Mm.
do to us because of their brokenness, and then we respond to that brokenness by altering how we relate to other people and to everyone. What you've
I
done
can
is,
feel it. Mm.
yeah, what you've done is that you have constructed your character using a pattern of someone who's broken. So you've
Mm.
constructed your character using a pattern of brokenness, right? How
Mm.
do I know that I've forgiven? When the character of brokenness is no longer a pattern around which I construct who I am, right?
Yeah.
I'm able to still show
Yeah.
up in people's lives, in spaces, in relationships,
Mm.
vulnerably, authentically, and
Yeah.
as honestly and genuinely as I
Mm.
am. Yeah, not
Mm.
naively, but so I say no. I'm not gonna be a low quality. I'm not gonna participate or produce low quality relationships because of what they did to me. So once that event stops
Mm.
dictating how I show up in my relationship presently, then okay, no, I've forgiven.
Yeah. But I love the words that you keep using here, Mfundis. Do the work.
Yes.
Do the work. Do the work. Do the work. I want to find out now because some of the things we're talking about here, we are very superficial.
Mm,
Um, but I would hear from you because I know that you do this kind of help,
mm,
helping people through some of the most traumatic experiences. So, but I will let you share that in case I'm making a few presumptions that people can
mm.
fully professionally
Mm.
does. Sometimes because the reason I'm mentioning that as umfundis is because you as pastors are also are counselors. Do you
Mm,
understand? People go to their district pastors for counseling, but I'm saying that as a one of your offerings is
mm.
this kind of
Yeah.
assistance. But you can share more about that in terms of how people can get hold of you. This just one thing came and people have picked it up as well about replaying. You know,
Mm,
if the enemy has anything to do with it, my friend, there will be a replay in your mind of
yeah.
either people's offenses or your own.
Mm,
If
mm.
he's not replaying how they have hurt you, he is going to replay about how you've messed up and how bad you
Yeah.
are, how your upbringing is, and how could you not have all of that stuff. And one of the biggest challenges of life is learning to switch the channel
Yeah.
is learning to switch the channel as often as possible. One of my favorite Bible verses. I found it very liberating for me, and
Mm,
I need to learn to apply it to other people as well. As it First
mm.
John my little children, I write you these things
Yeah, that you may not sin.
that you may not sin, full stop. But if you do, you have an advocate in the Father. So
Yeah.
yesterday I tried this and it didn't work. Or yesterday I horribly offended this person and I feel so bad. But I want to try again today. And I've asked God for forgiveness. I still feel bad because it does take a while.
Yeah.
The replay, it doesn't stop tomorrow. It does take a while, maybe a week, maybe two. But if it's 3 years replaying, then it's something to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, ma'am. If
Mm.
like I said, you are what you consistently do. So if I do the same thing for 3 years, I mean, 3 weeks is what it takes to build a habit, right?
Yeah.
If I've been doing it for 3 years, this thing has become me. It's become a part of my life. And I've become that. Like I literally become this side of trauma, not even the offense, but this side of misery, right? For 3 years, it's literally become your life. You don't even know who you are apart from this experience, right? You've lost your sense of being and your sense of identity, and it has become the one thing that you use as an identifier, right? After 3 years.
And unfairly, it then affects your other relationships.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
the
that's
people
who you are.
on their shoulder. Yeah, but it's unfair. It happened to you. I'm now just taking it outside again of something that happened to you, because there are people who have become completely sour, not because they did the original offense. They were offended. Somebody did something very bad to them.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they had not done the work of healing.
Yeah.
They have not done the healing work. Now they have become difficult to live with.
Yeah.
But for people that were not part of that offense, they've become bitter. So it's so deep, and the repercussions just go far and wide. But
it's a lot of work, my friend. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I mean, I look at the work I've had to do in my relationships, the work that I've had to do with people whom I'd wronged, the work that it's a lot of work. It's just a lot of work. That is we think that just because we're doing something good, we're going to be good, right? No, you're hurt. You need care. You need those wounds to be taken care of. You need those wounds and there are various ways of doing that. And this is just the start, right? That I always say to people, I mean, I do pastoral counseling, training in conflict management, and we do all these sort of trainings, but this is just the start. This is just the beginning, making you aware of the work of the problem, making you aware of the need for work, right? After this, there's a need for, then comes the hard work, right? It's a lot of work. Just because it's a good thing doesn't mean I'm going to be good, right? It does, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And that's what I always say when I talk to people who wrong people, right? If you've offended someone, like, you need to be aware what, especially if you want to reconcile, right? Don't talk to the other partner, but you need to be aware of what you've put your partner through, what you've put the other person through, not just in the past, but going forward. This is what they're now going to have to do in order for them to keep you in your life. Are you aware of that? A lot of people are not even aware of that, right? Is you've put me in a position where I have to now do all these things and do all this work, right? It's a lot of work because it's relationships, and relationships are expensive. Whichever way you think about it, emotionally, time-wise, and resource-wise, it's a lot of work.
It is, but I think we've done a good work this morning. Thank you so much. I think there's a lot of doors that have been opened, even if it is for us to go and think further, even if it's for us to go and process, is for us to go and work. But one conclusion we all agree on is that forgiveness is actually for us. It's for your benefit. It may seem unfair to forgive somebody who has offended you, but it is for your benefit. But if you think in terms of forgiving yourself, it's not unfair to forgive you. It's right, and as you said, it's grace. It's grace to one. I love that every day a little bit of For me, it is what gives you the courage to continue to live. Otherwise, we will
Yeah.
live. None of us deserve to take one step, one breath, because we are just a mess.
Yeah.
We make mistakes all the time. So if God does that for us every day, my friend, is it Jeremiah who says his mercies are new every morning?
Yeah.
Every morning. Give that to you as well, and give that
Yeah.
to others. Let them deal with what they do with it, but you give it to others. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
For this is very enlightening. For me, I couldn't think of no one. I said to you, think about writing a book on this, but I'm not going to say anymore. The community here loves books. We love books here. So
Yeah.
I'm going to get the ladies to coax you even further. But I do think that because, and as you say, you've been working on it for 12 years, it has been developing. So let's take what has developed now and put it on paper, and you can continue to develop it. But I'm truly grateful for what you have shared with us this morning. I will let you have your concluding remarks, and I'm going to ask you to also pray for us. I just want to remind the ladies again. Now I'm going to put the poster up, okay? Let's see, share screen. I just want to remind everybody again, officially, there we have it, our Theatre of Grace conference taking place from the 26th to the 29th. There are 5 now. By now we know Pastor Blose is one of our speakers at the conference. The theme, guys, arise, rise, and then raise. Okay? Phakama, usagqiba, and then unganyuki wedwa ntombi. Bring another, all right? Bring another. Yeah, please. And then we are going to be at the Lakes Hotel and Conference Center in Johannesburg. The rest of the details are here. Registration is 700 Rand, and then the camp fee is 3250. But for those who will not be camping, the total is 1.3, which includes the 700 registration. But those that are coming only on the Sabbath, it's 400 Rand. Now, I say to the guys that are planning to come on the Sabbath, you also need to register as well, because we will not be taking in people coming in on that Sabbath day. So you also need to make sure that you have registered as well with extended registration up until the 4th of June. After that, we will not be taking in the 1.3 and the campers. We may still, depending on space, say, okay, those that are coming on Sabbath, there's still a little bit of space, but I can't promise that at this stage because I don't know. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so your friend here is, please share with us how we can get hold of you to for help to cross over to the other side of forgiveness. So this is the part I want to talk about. Okay, in terms of the service that you offer.
Yeah, okay. So Usivu is naughty. Yeah, Usivu is naughty. So I've got a ministry and an NPC called Crossover. So yeah, it's a ministry called. I was just reading that question. Yeah.
Pick it up some other time.
Yeah.
I will not put more questions now.
No, it's fine. Yes, I've got a ministry called Crossover. Even in fact, my Facebook profile was Crossover, and we've got a page on Facebook, CrossOVR. Hasn't been active. I've got another one on Instagram, CrossOVR. So those are the social media platforms where the Crossover is active, the page and IG. So you can inbox on either of those, and we can have a chat and take it from there. I am very cautious of taking on something that I don't feel qualified for, especially if it's sensitive. So we can have conversations around it, but I'm very quick to pull the referral button, or to push the referral button. But pastoral support and counseling, I am extremely comfortable and available to help with, as you said. Yeah.
All right.
So you're my closing remarks? Right. So of course, I mean, I came on here to talk about forgiving yourself. We've ended up talking about just the idea of forgiveness, and I'm hoping that we're able to apply the principles of forgiveness when we extend it to other people as we extend it to ourselves. We need that grace, to be extended to ourselves. I think it was a Togi again during the communion service when I spoke about Peter and Judas, both of them sat at the same table as Jesus. Both of them had Jesus wash their feet. Both of them saw him break the bread and promise that it was broken for their transgressions. Both of them, they saw him break the bread. And he literally said, it's broken for your transgressions. Right? They both drank from the cup, which was for the washing of sins, and a promise that it will not, or they will not drink this cup again until they do so in his Father's house, in Jesus' house, in God's house, right? Both of them were there. Peter, Judas, both of them saw him, heard him, they listened, they felt him, they experienced him, right? Peter tried to act, smart. Don't wash my feet, Lord. That ego getting in the way again. He says, no, unless I do this, you're not making it into the kingdom. Unless you experience this grace, you're not making it into the kingdom. Unless you see me extend myself for you, you're not going to make it into the kingdom. And Peter says, no, but I should be the one washing your feet. Nah, it's not time for your ego right now. Just experience this grace. You're going to need it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need it. Right? When Peter, and it finds in the same evening, the same kind of darkness chases, hunts them down, and catches them. It finds Peter near a fire, seated with some people. Hey, don't you look like the one who followed Jesus? It finds Judas isolated, without community, with no relationships, alone. Right? Same darkness of guilt, darkness of feeling like you not only betrayed someone else, but you've also betrayed yourself. Not only betrayed someone you love, but you've also let yourself down. This darkness chased them down, pursued them, found them, consumed them, right? Peter remembered. Mrs. White writes about this, Desire of Ages.
Yeah.
She says at that moment when he was crestfallen, when this darkness of guilt was about to consume him and tear him asunder, he looked upon the cross and he saw the face of the Savior looking tenderly and kindly towards him, almost as if to say, I told you, right? I told you were going to need that, remember, and Peter wept bitterly, right? And I see that weeping, Peter's weeping is not just out of the disappointment of having let Jesus down, but it is also there's also him releasing the disappointment that he felt towards himself, right? And he weeps and he cries, and Peter lives,
and he becomes unstoppable.
Yeah, right. Peter weeps, Peter lives, but it was hard. It's not easy. Grown man sobbing like a child, right? Because he has to. The pain is so immense. It's so intense, right? And he has to let it go. He has to let it out. And Peter lives, becomes one of the most influential men of the New Testament church. Peter still messes up, by the way, later.
Yeah.
But Peter lives.
Yeah.
Because Peter allowed the Savior to wash his feet. He remembered the Savior's message that the body was broken for him, so he no longer needed to break himself. Right? That the cleansing and this blood was shed for the cleansing of his sins, so he no longer needs to carry them. They've been washed. Experience this grace from God, not so that you can extend it to others, but so that you can extend it to yourself. Right? Let him wash your feet. Allow for his body to be broken for you so that you stop breaking yourself. Right? Let that blood cleanse you of your sins, cleanse you of your disappointment, so that you don't have to carry it, right? And may it find you positioned, perfectly positioned to behold his kind face, even as he suffers for your well-being, right? The only difference between Judas and Peter, is that Judas forgot. That's it. He forgot the words. He forgot the message. He forgot the gesture. He forgot the grace. He forgot the grace he'd received from Christ for himself. Right? He didn't receive it so that he could extend it. He received it for himself. Right? He forgot it. And when the darkness found him, it found him away from the Savior, consumed him, destroyed him, and took his life. Don't let the darkness of guilt, disappointment, hurt, and pain cause you to forget. Kata kata mntana, usele. Kata kata every day. Just a little bit every day of that grace.
Yeah.
Just for your well-being. Just so that the darkness will not consume you. Thank you.
Don't forget.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck at Peter lived.
Yeah.
Peter lived.
We need you to live, you know. You need to be alive. We need you.
Yeah.
We need you to live.
I'm battling now. Fortunately, but let's let you pray for us, guys. Thank you so much. This is one of those great talks you want to share with a friend. This is one that you actually want to share with someone. It's been liberating. Although it took a shift, that even where it went, it still liberated us. Because half the time we're battling with forgiving others.
Yeah.
And of course ourselves. So I know that the direction kept coming and going. Mani Puma, it zigged and zagged. But liberty.
Yeah.
Liberty
Yeah.
has come. So thank you so much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I think we've got a new hashtag. Kata kata mda. Kata kata mda.
Sure. Let's go. Put this. Let me let you pray for us. Thank you so much.
All right, let's pray. I was actually just gonna say I like Yanga, man. He's my favorite. He's one of my favorite husbands.
Yanga is coming to grade 2 because we are going to Gauteng. So Yanga is coming to the conference.
No, he has to be there.
He has to.
Yeah, the guys have to come, and they have to be there. We need them there. Like you saw last year, we need them there.
Please.
So let me pray, man.
Thank you.
Let's pray. Dearest Lord and Father in heaven, help us not to forget. Help us to always remember that you loved us before we even deemed ourselves lovable. You loved us even before we knew there was something unlovable about us. We thank you that when you looked at us, you didn't see a gift befitting of honoring the love that you had for us outside of your Son, outside of who you are. If you could love us so much, and if you could prize us so much and so highly, maybe it's time we followed suit. Maybe it's time we took your example that we are always in the palm of your grace. Be with us now and help us to forgive ourselves. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Fundisi. And thank you, everybody. Have a blessed, blessed, blessed week. We'll meet on Wednesday for our Wellness Wednesday and Fasting Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.